Hey, it's Mike Robinson, and these are my videos to help you be a success in college. Right now is normally where I have my Chemical Brothers stinger. YouTube doesn't like it, so let's have a moment of silence for the Chemical Brothers. And off we go. Alright, so this is another video in my series. If you haven't seen the previous ones, definitely watch them, especially the one about making a weekly plan. Because this is a weekly plan right here. This is a plan we made with a student, a hypothetical student. They have a bunch of classes, and then they have half-hour segments for studying spread throughout the week. What I'm going to talk about in this video is how you can be most efficient at filling up those half-hour segments. To be efficient so that you can get your work done, do well, and have time left for relaxing and socializing and all the other great things you can do at college. You need a plan. It doesn't have to be a super detailed plan, but you need a plan. You need a way to approach it. So, TLDW today. 1. You're going to want to have a list of tasks each week. I'll talk more about developing up a detailed list of those tasks. But a lot of the times, the tasks are simply going to be learn the lecture. Every week, your goal should be to learn everything that you covered this week. You have 3 lectures in biology before the next week starts. So by Saturday, Sunday, you have studied those 3 hours and you know them. So that when the next week comes around, new material, but you're ready to get them. You're not falling behind, okay? What else would these tasks involve? Maybe you're preparing for the next week, you're preparing for an exam or paper or presentation, and then you're also looking on the horizon, maybe doing some longer term projects. I promise I will talk about that sort of planning in a future video. Once you have these tasks, you should divide them up into little 25-minute segments. 25 minutes is going to fit nicely within a 30-minute segment. And I highly recommend you follow something called the Pomodoro Technique. And as always, if you need a transcript, send me an email. Okay, here is this person's study plan. You'll see they got a bunch of classes, and then they have these half-hour segments that are dedicated to studying different subjects. Now remember these rules of thumb. For every hour of a STEM lecture, you should spend 3 hours working outside of that lecture. For every 1 hour of a non-STEM lecture, it's 2 hours outside. And for every hour of a lab, about an hour outside of lab. Okay, so those are just general rules of thumb. See the previous video about putting together a weekly schedule. But this is going to inform you about how much time you should spend and how you should allocate your time. So let's say you have biology, 3 hours of zoology a week. You had an hour lecture on Monday. That means you should be then dedicating 3 hours based on just that one lecture on Monday. How could you break it up? You could spend 2 hours studying the hour of lecture. That's really good. And then you have a third hour. During that third hour, what do? Maybe you read the text for the next lecture. Maybe you review what you already learned in that lecture. Or maybe you review the previous lecture just to make sure it's fresh in your mind. Maybe you work on a paper. You got a paper coming up. Remember, these are just sort of suggestions. You have to do what works for you. But until you can figure out what works for you, if you follow along with these rules of thumb, you will probably be much more efficient and hopefully, therefore, happier. Okay, so let's say in zoology lecture on Monday, you covered 18 slides about mollusks. So let's say you've determined that you're going to spend 2 hours on this particular material. Now, we've broken it up into 30-minute segments. So that means you're going to have 4 30-minute segments. Okay, so the simplest approach is to break these notes up into 4 groups. There are 18 total slides, so that would be 4 or 5 slides per group. So let's put a break there. Let's put a break there. Let's put a break here. All right, so now we've got 4 or 5 slides, 4 sets. Perfect. So for the first segment, we're going to study those 5 slides. Now you might say, that's ridiculous. 5 slides? Why am I going to study 5 slides in 30 minutes? You need to realize that this information has to get into your head. Just sitting there reading the notes is not enough. Students tell me again and again when I ask them how they study, they say, well, I read the notes. That is not considered studying. Just sitting there reading the notes is not going to be enough. What are you going to have to do in the future? You need to be able to recall the information without reference to anything else. So you might sit down and there's going to be a test question. You don't have your notes there. You're going to have to be able to read that question, tap into your brain, and get the information from your brain to answer that question. So you have to put this information into your brain. Not only that, you need to put it into your brain such that you understand it. Memorizing definitions and lists, that's not really going to cut it anymore. The expectations are now higher. You need to be able to explain things, understand things. For example, let's say you're studying electromagnetism. You can't just define it. Yes, being able to define electromagnetism is important, but that's not going to be enough. You need to be able to explain how electromagnetism operates in the world, apply it to situations, solve problems related to it. You're going to come in, say, have a test, or maybe you're just talking to the professor in class, and they're going to say, well, what happens if I give you scenario X, Y, and Z? If you truly understand electromagnetism, you'll be able to explain it back and say, well, this would happen because of X. That's why you have to spend so much time working on this stuff. It's not because it takes you that long to read a slide. It's because you are working on understanding these things. Now, I'm going to talk more about learning and the expectations of learning in a future video. Okay, this is a very simple approach, but I want you to keep this in mind for now. During those 30 minutes of study, you're going to try to put a lot of information, including understanding, into your head. And understanding is not something that you can just memorize. Understanding is something that you need to work through. What are some other 30-minute tasks? Well, I mean, you could study a third of a lecture. Okay, you just kind of talked about that. You could test yourself on lecture content. You could write a paragraph. You got a paper to do. You say, okay, I'm going to write the introductory paragraph to this paper. You could read 5 pages, of a textbook. If you're reading a novel, maybe you're going to read 20 pages. Practice a presentation. There are a lot of things that you will have to do, a lot of different things. That's one of the reasons college is so awesome, is because you are developing lots of different skills. Just figure out how much you can accomplish in a reasonable 30 minutes, and then take that little bit of work and get it done. Now, I like the Pomodoro Technique. It's Italian. I probably said it wrong. It's probably like Pomodoro. Maurizio, if you're listening, I apologize. But this is a technique that helps me and should help you focus. And by focusing, you will become efficient. And by being efficient, you can get more work done in less time and then have more time for relaxing. So what you do is you have a task that takes about 25 minutes, okay? And then you focus on that one task. You're not looking at your phone, you're not surfing on the internet, you're not watching Netflix, you're not listening to music. You focus 25 minutes, you get your work done, and then you take a 5-minute break. So 25 minutes and a 5-minute break. And during your 5 minute break, you just completely disconnect, right? You let your brain rest. Maybe then you text your friends, check Instagram, get up and stretch, do 5 push ups, 5 sit ups, 5 jumping jacks, and then boom, at the end of 5 minutes, you get back on to the next task. Right, then 5 minutes, 25 minutes, 5 minutes, 25 minutes, and after having worked for 4 segments of 25 minutes, plus a 5 minute breaks, so essentially 2 hours, then you're going to take a longer break, 15 to 20 minutes. This is an excellent way to get you to focus because what it does is it gives you a sense of urgency. You want to get something done in these 25 minutes. Just like Mission Impossible, and there's a countdown timer, and everyone is focused on trying to defuse the bomb before the countdown timer gets to 0. You are focused on trying to learn that material, trying to write that paragraph in those 25 minutes. Now, do not get stressed by this. Okay? Now, yes, there's a sense of urgency, but if you are feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling, I keep giving myself these tasks and it's just too much, okay, then back off. Back off a bit. Maybe give yourself fewer tasks to do. Maybe find something else that works for you. Okay? But if it's not working for you, don't get yourself stressed over it. But number 2, also forgive yourself. Right? You're not always going to know exactly how long it takes you. Sometimes I don't know how long something's going to take me. All right? I might say I'm going to write a paragraph and I get maybe 4 sentences because I get stuck on finding a reference or I get stuck on some wording or something like that. So don't let the urgency make you sloppy, and don't let the urgency make you feel stressed or inadequate. Take the time you need to get something done. If you find that you need more time to get something done, okay, that happens. This technique is just to help you be focused during this 25 minutes. And if you vastly overestimated how much you could accomplish in that 25 minutes, okay, it's not a big deal. If you hoped to get 15 problems done in calculus in 25 minutes, okay, that's a bit ridiculous, but let's just say you did and you were only able to get 5 done, okay, you're not a failure. You just need to recalibrate your thinking. And then the next 25 minutes, do 5 problems, okay? This is an app called Focus Keeper Time Management. You can download it onto your phone, onto your laptop. And what it does is it sets up the Pomodoro Technique for you. So you put in a task. It doesn't have to be a detailed task. You don't have to put in study zoology. It could just be study. I have mine set up as work. And then I just tell it to run, and it automatically goes through the Pomodoro Technique for you. So it starts a countdown. See, I'm focusing. This is my second focus session right there. It's counting down from 25. If I have to, I can pause it. I can move this dial back and forth to change the time if I want to for whatever reason. And then when it gets down to 0, an alarm goes, and I know I can take a break. And the break starts automatically. I got 5 minutes. And then after 5 minutes, it's back to focus. One good thing about this is that you can see how much time you've spent being productive. I don't worry about this personally because I have my days planned out. I just use this as an automatic timer. But you might find that this is helpful. 2 things that I change about this. One is that there is sort of an annoying ticking countdown. So what I do is I just come up here into settings and I silence that. The other thing is that it makes the long break 25 minutes. I don't need that much time. Maybe you do. After 4 work sessions, I will just adjust the long break down to 15 minutes. You don't have to do exactly 15 minutes, right? Maybe what you do is you do it 2 hours of work and then you have dinner planned or exercise, or maybe it's just the end of the night. Whatever. The 15 minutes doesn't have to be a hard 15 minutes. It could be the end of your work. These periods in here, those are the key. It should also go without saying that you don't have to work 2 hours straight. Maybe you only have an hour available of work. Just do an hour. This technique is really most beneficial when you have several hours ahead of you and you're trying to stay efficient over a period of 2, 3, 4 hours. Alright, so in summary, you're going to have a list of tasks every week. Week in and week out, much of it will be the same. It'll be learning the material covered in class. Every week, you should be learning everything covered during that week. Do not get behind. Break the work up into 25-minute tasks, and I recommend using the Pomodoro Technique. But even if you don't like that, break it up into little tasks that you can achieve within half an hour at a time, and you will be much happier getting your work done. That's it. Be efficient so you can have as much fun as possible. Thank you very much.